Today's video is going to cover the bottom job on my boat. It's one of those jobs that has been very unpleasant and taken way too much time. I kind of wish I had just paid someone to do it. I mean, on the other hand, I did learn a whole lot, but just the time and effort it took to do, I don't really think was worth it to do myself. In the future, it's kind of hard to say because I feel like I learned enough and I could tackle it again a lot more efficiently. But even then, I think it might be better just to pay to have a boatyard do it. I'm not really confident about the results, and that I don't know if it will, hold up over time. We'll see. And then also it's just like I could be using my time for a lot better things to be doing on working on the boat than, just prepping the bottom. I ended up starting off, I think my initial assessment was maybe one of the problems, like the paint was in a lot better condition maybe than I realized. I think I could have just lightly sanded it and slapped another coat of ablative paint on there. What happened is as I was kind of working my way into it, I noticed a lot of layers with a lot of chipped kind of away. The gel coat was even worn away down to the fiberglass once I removed the top layers of bottom paint. And I kind of wanted to seal those up with a little barrier paint or epoxy just to try to prevent osmosis and blisters in the future. There weren't really any blisters, but there was maybe the beginnings of osmosis going on, which is very normal. That's just when water enters in the glass, like laminate, and it can cause like bubbles. And again, you can grind them out. They're gonna happen with these older boats. They didn't use the epoxies they have now. But if you can like remove all of the gel coat, you can cover the barrier coat, and it should protect it for water. And then you put either a hard or a soft bottom coat, anti-fouling coat, and that will keeps the marine growth and makes the bottom cleaning a little easier. You don't want barnacles and stuff slowing you down or like kind of messing up in your prop and your rudder and making that stuff less effective. But I started off using a cheap battery powered random orbit sander. It just was way not up to the job, and you really need like a pretty heavy duty orbital sander, or I guess bigger random orbit sander, and you really want a vacuum attachment because all that paint is just going to fly everywhere and it's going to stick back to the hull, and so you just end up smearing it around. So I pretty quickly switched over to sandblasting, and that was kind of a fun can of worms to mess around with. There's a lot I guess that goes into it, and I mean maybe having a better sandblaster, a bigger compressor would have helped, but it removes the paint so much easier. You just hold this lightweight little sandblaster gun versus a heavy sander, and it's just a lot easier just to do the sandblasting. It's a lot more fun and satisfying, but that still gets you, you get really dirty and it's kind of unpleasant. And figuring out how to clear the jams and what kind of sand and stuff to use and how to recycle it was another one of those like learning processes. But yeah, I learned a lot about it, and I'll try to share some of that with you at the end. Started sanding the hull. It took quite a long time to get this area here. So many layers of different stuff. So I got this Harbor Freight sandblaster, and I got 50 pounds of, I think it's coal slag, the really fine stuff. I think it's the only stuff that the reviews say will run through this gun. And so I think sandblasting is going to be the way to go. It's kind of hard to tell because the coats on this, there's a coat of blue bottom paint, and then red bottom paint, and then it goes down to blue again. And I got the first two coats, the blue and the red off, so it's back to blue again. And it only took maybe 30 minutes to do this entire side of the rudder. I ran out of sand at the very top. But sandblasting seems to be way faster, and I have a lot more control over how far I want to remove. It's going to use a lot of sand though. I mean, it probably used maybe 35 to 40 pounds just to get this part of the rudder. So I might try to see if I can find a cheaper source of the sand. I'm using coal slag, but I might also be able to reuse it if I put a tarp under here. We'll see. Maybe I'll experiment with that. I'm here at Northern Tool, and they've got this crushed glass on sale for $7 for a 50-pound bags. I've been using this coal slag, which was working pretty good. That's also on sale for $6. I was paying twice that at Tractor Supply almost. So I'm gonna grab a bunch of this. I think this glass stuff might be better. I'm gonna try it out. Maybe get a few more bags of coal slag too while I'm here. And I'm really excited to give this a try.
Everything I've read about it, it's like a little bit better than using coal slag or sand, and I think this will be more. I think this will have no problem going through my sandblaster. It's a medium grit, but it still looks fine enough. So this is a 50-pound bag, and you can't get silicosis with this apparently either, which is another plus.
The progress is being made with the sandblaster. It's kind of slow, but now I'm reclaiming the sand, or I guess this is called crushed glass. Today we are trying the next level up of Harbor Freight sandblaster.
For test purposes.
Tank,
Yep.
huh? How much pressure is it under? Whatever you set it on up there?
Wasn't sure exactly where you wanted it.
And is there like, you have to play around with the flow rates on these things, or is it just like wide open usually? What is the, you know, because mine is just, there's no settings
No,
on
you
it.
got on, off, here.
Okay.
This, I guess you might be able to adjust a little bit.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this,
we'll have to play with it and see.
I think there's.
I think this is going to be great. Okay.
It must have just
Looks like some kind of cartoon character.
Sandy Gonzalez. Don't get in the way of that thing. This one back and forth.
And now
Okay, it must be.
plug in. Here.
Working now. Boy. Oh, man. Oh, clog again.
This is my engine water intake, the first strainer, sea strainer. It's really clogged up, but it's a trick. So I've got my sandblasting area. I'm trying to keep this clean from grass and stuff, so I don't have to filter the sand after I reuse it. We got about half of this side of the hull done. My goal is to get the rest of this done today. I've been experimenting with using a little bit of that filler. And yeah, I'm not looking forward to this, but it's gotta be done. So I'm able to reclaim a lot of the sand. I'll probably get about 75% back.
And we should be able to. There we go. There it goes. There it goes. That was way easier to do with two people.
Yeah. That's just 3D print upon it, right? I had to 3D print this adapter for my shop vac today, and I'm trying out my 3D print dryer. I'm printing directly from it, and this is important to keep the moisture out of your filaments, and it can print directly from it, so it's heating it up to 55 degrees Celsius, and that'll remove the moisture from the PLA. And I'm not sure if there's too much friction, but it seems to be working, so we'll see how that goes. Print's looking pretty good. Thank you very much, Print Dry, for sending me this. Seems to be good so far. The instructions have this little chart for drying temperatures and times, so I'm just gonna cut that out. Here's the 3D print part, works pretty good. So now I have to get this area underneath these pads, so hopefully the boat doesn't go anywhere. Looks like we're okay.
Alright, please don't fall out. Quite a bit of moisture in there. Let's see. So this batch had a lot of like junk in it when I recycled the sand, so I'm gonna try the sifter out. I'd say that's worth doing because all that stuff would clog up my sandblaster. Moving this forward stand is a little stressful. I moved these side ones out next to it, so we'll see what happens when I release it if the boat moves. I tightened these up a little bit and I was able to get the front stand out. So I'm just gonna sandblast this last little bit here. And I also have to get this section here. And I left a little bit near the water line so I can see where I need to put it. Maybe I'll scribe that in there and then I can sandblast the rest of that off too. I'm gonna scribe the water line in before I sand off this paint, because once I sand this off, I won't be able to find it later. I am mixing up some more of this fairing compound. I'm going to get the hull over here. I've already started filling in all these little, I don't know, I think it's like the start of osmosis blisters. Or I don't know, maybe just paint flaking off. But I'm just kind of doing a skim kind of pass on that just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. I noticed when I did the rudder, I didn't do that, and you can kind of see some of those spots through there. So I figured these are spaces where barnacles can latch on. So just trying to smooth it out, give it fighting chance against the barnacles. Now I'm just sanding down the fairing compound, and I'm taping off the water line, and I'm putting some epoxy barrier coat because there were some areas on the gel coat where it was kind of worn down to fiberglass or cracked, and this should help keep water from getting in there. You're really supposed to sand the boat all the way down to the gel coat, but this bottom layer of paint was just on there really good, and I didn't want to spend an extra week trying to remove it. So it might fail, but I think it'll be good enough. We'll see. So I ran out of the West Systems rollers that I had, and these ones looked the same, but the minute I put it in the epoxy, it just basically separated from the roller. I'm using the Toto Boat 2-part epoxy barrier coat. I like this stuff. It's pretty hard, gets pretty hard and sticks real good. And they sent me a gallon, so thanks guys. Goes on real nice. The areas I fared nice and smooth. The areas I didn't, it's a little more of a challenge. So I did the first coat of barrier paint, and now I'm gonna remove the tape. That's pretty satisfying. Look at that nice clean line. So I wedged some boards in here so I could remove these supports to paint underneath them, and then these ones I will get underneath them another day. But these 2 blocks that the keel is sitting on, I'm not going to bother trying to jack the boat up. I was advised not to mess with it, and so I'm doing as good as I can. I'm able to get paint pretty much a lot of the way underneath there, but there'll just be a few little sections without paint, and we'll just live with that. I got some extra paint, so I'm going to cover this. Is one of the berths. Had just enough paint to cover all 3 of the floor hatches, and then the two berths. Now I'm taping off the bottom so I can prime this boot stripe. So we're preparing for bottom paint.
So this is the epoxy primer, and that keeps the water out of the fiberglass. And on top of it is the bottom paint, which keeps the growth from sticking to the boat. Bottom paint I chose was Interlux Ultra, and that has copper and some chemicals that keep stuff from growing on your boat. It will kind of slash off over time, and it's a mixer and a drill was really helpful for getting that mixed up. It's pretty thick. It's looking black. So don't go to the areas without a barrier coat yet, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we'll ship it, dude.
Oh, you missed a spot here. What were you doing? it's like, I mean, you almost got the whole thing.
Yeah, what the fuck? God damn it.
Oh, there's another one right here, too.
Yeah, you can't find good help anymore, right?
There's a spot on this side, too.
Fire those volunteers, dude.
If you're going to sandblast your boat, I'll share the limited experience I have. I started off with this Harbor Freight sandblaster, and it does remove paint, but it's very slow. The next level up, this red one, is about, I don't know, 5 times faster. This one's a lot simpler, and when it jams up, you can just usually hold your hand over the nozzle, and it will clear it up. This one works a little differently, and that's not quite as effective for clearing out the nozzle jams. It also sometimes it jams down here. You spend a whole lot of your time clearing up jams, but once you kind of figure it out, it's not too difficult. Probably the first thing you do when it jams is just to kind of do a little bit, just to kind of slow the air down right there for a second, and then usually that'll help. Also, when you're running it, you never want to have the bottom valve all the way open. It's kind of like somewhere in the middle there, and you kind of experiment with how much sand you want. You want enough sand to remove, a lot of paint, but no more than that, really. You need to have really nice dry air, so these, air dryers are good to have, and probably a desiccant too. A big compressor is pretty essential too. I don't think I would go any smaller than this one, which is, I think it's a 3 horsepower and a 60-gallon tank. That's able to keep up with it, but having more would be even better. Maybe like a 5 horsepower, or maybe just running a gas one would probably be the way to go. You do the job a lot faster. I'd highly recommend recycling your sand and also sifting it. And this kind of wider mesh, these like for panning for gold, worked really good. It doesn't take long at all to sift the sand after you collect it in a tarp. I did like the crushed glass. The other one worked pretty good too, but I just felt like the crushed grass worked a little bit faster. It was worth the extra $1 for a buck a bag or whatever it cost. Since I ended up barrier coating it anyway, I do wish I had gone all the way down to the gel coat. And the problem for me was that bottom layer of paint was just on there really good. So hopefully that means it won't come off. But for me to remove the rest of that was just going to be days and days on the grinder or sander. And I was just like had enough of it by then. I think an orbital or grinder with like a vacuum attachment, like a real heavy duty one, would also be a good way to remove all the paint. But I think the sandblaster is just so much easier. So it was fun to experiment with too. Definitely not a how-to video, just kind of my experience. I obviously don't want to know what I'm doing. I'm sure people will leave comments on what I did wrong. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.